I never thought I'd hear this from my own son. At least, not on the day he was supposed to be happy. Malibu, Friday morning. The air smelled of sea salt and way too expensive champagne. Chris's pre-wedding party was happening at a hotel overlooking the ocean. The venue rented for $17,000. Taylor, his fiancée, had chosen a coastal minimalist style. Beige tones, natural linen, everything flawlessly Instagram-worthy. Even the guests looked like filtered profiles, light shirts, white dresses. Smiles like a script. I walked into the room where everyone was gathering, holding a gift wrapped by hand. My own design. Inside, vintage cufflinks that belonged to Chris's grandfather. I smiled, nodded to a few people. They noticed me but didn't greet me. Taylor glanced at me briefly, then turned away. Chris saw me and stood up quickly. He came over, grabbed my elbow politely, then said, "Can you not stand too close? You're a little too not the vibe. Sorry, Mom." I froze, thought I misheard him. He kept going. Tay spent a lot of time curating the visuals. It's gonna be all over socials. It's just, your outfit, your energy, it's a bit off. He didn't even look me in the eyes. Like I was a stranger, like I was an intrusion. Later, when almost everyone had gone to their rooms, he came to me on the veranda. Slowly, cautiously, as if he wanted to apologize. "Look, I know you're doing your best, but you're kind of ugly for the aesthetic I'm going for." Just like that, no pause. I was standing there in a blouse I'd sewn myself, in shoes I wore the day he graduated from UCLA. I just looked at him, and at that moment, everything inside froze. There was no pain, no anger. There was silence, deafening, like before an earthquake. Or after. I smiled, very slowly, and said, "Okay, Chris, enjoy the moment." He nodded as if nothing terrible had happened. As if I was just another prop in the show. Then he walked away. Light, bright, young. Perfect, tuned in, festive. And I stood on the veranda, looking at the ocean, remembering how I hand-washed his sneakers when he was in 5th grade. How I held his hand in the ER when he broke his collarbone. How I stayed up nights writing reports to pay for his SAT tutoring. Now I was out of frame, out of concept, out of place. But right then, staring at the waves, I understood. If they exclude me from their perfect picture, I'll paint my own. No revenge, no scandal, just truth, unfiltered. And yes, it won't go into the wedding album. But it will go into the story, mine. When Chris was little, he clung to my hand like it was an anchor. And no, he's afraid I'll ruin the background. I remember the night my husband packed his bag and left. Chris was 5. He sat in the corner of our California kitchen with a banana and a Capri Sunday juice box, watching the door slam shut. And I watched my son. And I realized, that was it. Now it's just us, him and me. We moved from Santa Clara to Thousand Oaks into a 1-bedroom apartment. I got a job as an accountant at an agency, and in the evenings I freelanced doing reports, managing budgets for small businesses. Sometimes I filled tax returns for $50. Chris was my morning coffee and my nighttime worry. I sewed his clothes myself, not out of poverty, but out of a desire to give him the best. For graduation, I made him a blue blazer trimmed with fine velvet. He said, "Wow, Mom, you look like you're in a movie." He was proud. Back then, he still was. But then, college, a new circle, a new life. At first, he just called less often. Then he became more careful with his words. He stopped saying, "I love you, Mom," and started saying, "It's okay, don't worry." I remember commenting on his first post from the USC campus, "So proud of you, my champion." And he messaged me privately, "Mom, please don't comment on my posts, okay? It's a little different here." Another time, I wanted to come to an event they were giving him an award for a student project. I didn't want to interfere, just wanted to sit in the audience. But he said, "Mom, don't, it'll be awkward, just wait for the photos." I smiled, of course, always smiled. Even when I sat alone with my phone, liking posts where he shone against the backdrop, next to tailoring a $900 dress from Anthropology. And me? I was in the background, support, accounting, provision. No one asked who paid for his first MacBook, his SAT math course, or the trip to the debate tournament in Indiana. The answer was always, Mom will handle it. And I did, quietly, without a thank you. I never asked for much, just a place beside him. Not in the center. Not in the spotlight. Just to be acknowledged, even a little. But now when he said, "You don't fit the aesthetic," I understood. It's not about clothes, not about hair. It's about rewriting our story. And cutting me out like a background element. But there's one thing he missed. I know how to remember. How to piece together fragments. And if I've been in the background, well, only until now. Now the frame is mine. I never demanded to be in the spotlight. But I expected at least to be in the circle. When Chris said the wedding would be classic, but with a modern edge, I nodded. I'm not a designer, I'm an accountant, but I'm a mom. I wanted to be close, wanted to support. One morning, I messaged Taylor, his fiancé, asking if I could help with the bridal shower. I offered to order flowers. There's a little shop in Malibu where women create simply magical arrangements. Taylor didn't reply right away. The next day, a short message came. Thanks, but we're keeping it low-key. Mostly our generation, you know. You wouldn't feel that comfortable. Our generation. As if I were a museum exhibit that doesn't fit the display. I swallowed it down. Didn't argue. Didn't hit reply. Later, I showed her my dress sky blue, calf-length, with an embroidered collar. I'd saved it for a special occasion. Taylor looked and quietly smirked. Oh, it's kind of vintage. Almost outdated, but sweet though. Outdated. The word stabbed me like a cold needle. Not the dress me. I wanted to hear, "You're beautiful, you matter." But instead, I got a look through me, polite, cool, distant. That evening, I talked to Chris, in his kitchen, at his place. I said I was a little upset, unsure if I should even come to the shower if I wasn't really seen there. He put his phone down and looked at me like I was a colleague, not his mother. Mom, don't take it personally. It's just a stylish event. Taylor's planned everything really well. There's going to be a certain aesthetic. Aesthetic. Another word like a wall. I'm out of frame, out of taste, out of time, out of their generation. They didn't say don't come. But they didn't leave a place where I could be myself. Just a strip that says, don't interfere. I went out to the veranda and watched the sun set behind the hills. Softly glowing lanterns stood nearby, probably part of their aesthetic too. And me, a hunched figure in a side frame that can be cut out in editing. But you know what? If they cut me out, I'll start filming my own story. No filters, no approvals. They forgot that a mother isn't just a decoration at the celebration. She's its reason. The dinner in honor of Taylor took place in a private room at a Malibu hotel, everything styled straight out of Pinterest. Dusty pinks, golden light, candles in glass capsules. I arrived on time. Not the first. Of course not the first. They seated me in the far corner. Next to me, Taylor's mom and one of her friends, who seemed to have simply forgotten to introduce me. I nodded, smiled. Everyone had champagne in their glasses. I had ice water with lime. Coincidence? Maybe. After the main course, they announced the gift moment. First from the friends, then from the groom's sister, and finally, a special present from the entire bridal party for Miss Myers. The waitress brought a beautiful box tied with a ribbon. Inside 3 things. A $250 gift certificate to the upscale Glow Atelier beauty salon in Westwood. A brochure for a body confidence after 50 course by some Instagram coach. And a card, pink font, glitter. The text. To the woman who's always in the background, here's to helping you feel fabulous in it. Pause. Silence. Then laughter. Light, trendy. Like they didn't offend. Like it was a joke. One of the friends said, "It's a joke, Miss Myers. You're gorgeous. Don't be so sensitive." Don't be so sensitive. The old familiar weapon against any truth. I lifted my eyes. looked at her the way only women who've been written off too soon can look, and smiled, very calmly. "Thank you. Very appropriate." I put the box in my bag, not abruptly, not dramatically like a piece of paper I no longer need. Taylor came over later and without looking me in the eye said, "Hope you're not mad, it was just a little humor." I smiled again. "It's fine. It's a great gift. It freed up space for me." That night, I didn't finish my dessert. I got home, took off my shoes, and put the box with the gifts in the bottom drawer of the kitchen table. Not as a keepsake, but as a marker, a boundary. From that moment on, I was no longer their silent decoration. Their aesthetic, not mine. And their sense of humor, not funny. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not because of the words, but because of how easily they slipped off their faces, like I really was just background. But I was everything when they had nothing. I opened my laptop. The screensaver was an old photo of Chris, a teenager with a backpack down to his knees, standing in front of our Pasadena home. He was smiling, toothless, unfiltered, before the aesthetics. I created a new folder, named it Invisible Backbone. Not a pretty name, but true. First, a voice memo. 2007. He got sick before the school tournament. I stayed with him 3 days straight, no sleep, canceled work. He cried, worried he'd let the team down. I sewed him a warm sweatshirt with the emblem so he could at least come out to support them. He said then, "You're a superhero, Mom." First and last time, by the way. Then, screenshots. College texts. "Mom, can you help with rent? My grant got denied, and if I don't pay by the 5th, I get kicked out." Not photo, my $800 check sent via Zelle. No questions asked. Email, "Thanks, you're the best buffer between me and reality." Buffer. Not a person. Not a mom. A function. Silence translated into dollars. I added a photo of his first suit to the folder. I bought it myself back when I was working accounting double shifts. He was interning at Deloitte in Chicago. I remember smoothing the lapels and hiding my pride behind a veil of, "It's just normal." No, it's not normal. Normal is being seen. Normal is having a name, not just a contribution. At some point, I realized, I don't want him to apologize. No scenes, no tears, no late night, "Mom, I'm sorry." I just won't be invisible anymore. The folder grew. It became a storage, not of pain, but of reality. I wasn't going to share it. Just wanted to remember, to record. Not for court, for me. I opened the last note and said out loud, "You don't have to love your mother, but you don't have the right to pretend she wasn't." I closed the laptop. And inside, for the first time in a long time, it wasn't empty. It was quiet. A silence no longer afraid to be heard. I was sitting at the end of the row, at a small table near the ficus and the speaker. People were sipping Prosecco, laughing, talking about the sunset palette Taylor had chosen for the decor. And I was watching my son standing by the stage in a white suit, with a confident smile. He was giving toasts, thanking everyone except me. When Taylor's father stood up with the microphone to give a speech about the value of roots, I stood up and calmly walked over to the media table. I wasn't hysterical. I didn't shout. I just knew the password to their Google Drive. He was too lazy to change it. The USB was in my clutch. The video started with one click. The screen hanging in the middle of the garden flickered slightly. Someone thought it was just slides from childhood. Oh, what a sweet idea. But the sound was different. It wasn't music. It was a voice. "Christopher, 2005, first day of kindergarten. He's holding my hand, not his father's. I'm in a $3 t-shirt, no makeup. Because I worked a night shift and only had time to rush home." On the screen, me, young and sleepy in my accountant's uniform, leading him by the hand across the schoolyard. Then photos, the graduation suit I sewed myself. Then, Pay Tao, a $2,000 tuition check. Amen, a letter from UC Berkeley. "We're happy to accept Christopher Myers." And my signature on the payment guarantee form. The guests froze. Someone laughed. "Oh, that's some kind of art video?" But the video kept playing. Photos with captions. Ope. First car? On my credit card. Wrote. First internship, I wrote the motivation letter. Huge. His first blazer, my bonus for night shifts. No music. Only silence. And in the last frames a photo of me with an IV drip and Christopher in a Zoom interview. I was lying in the same room. He asked to keep it quiet because he needed to focus. And the last phrase, white letters on a black screen. Beauty isn't always visible, but it builds everything you see. The sound went silent. 5 seconds of pause. No applause, no one knew how. I stood up and walked away. Not fast, not dramatic, just calmly. Because it wasn't a moment of revenge. It was a full stop. And after it, my story begins. I had just reached the parking lot when I heard quick footsteps behind me. It was Chris, disheveled, flushed, without his jacket. He didn't look like the groom from a Pinterest board, but like a boy who didn't get what he wanted. Are you serious? This was my day, Mom. You made us look like fools. I didn't answer right away. I opened the car door and put my clutch on the front seat. He kept going. You could have talked to me in private, but you put on a show in front of 100 people. I looked at him. And suddenly I understood. It wasn't anger. It was panic. He was afraid the image would collapse, that someone had seen the real picture. I sighed and quietly said, "You're right, it was your day. That's exactly why you'll remember it." He froze as if waiting for me to apologize, to explain. But I got in the car, closed the door, and only then added through the glass. You wanted me to be silent background. But I'm not background. I was the backbone, and now just a witness. I drove away. 15 minutes later, I got the first message. Are you okay? Then another. Chris is furious, but everyone's shocked. People applauded you when you left. An hour later, the video appeared on TikTok. Someone from the guests recorded the moment with the final caption. #invisible-mothers. Comments read. I cried. That's my mom. Mom of the year. They call it tactlessness. This is the truth. Within 24 hours, BuzzFeed. Within 3 days, Good Morning America was calling my direct messages. And Chris? Chris went silent. Probably he didn't know how to put a filter on this level of reality. But I knew. I lived without filters. And finally, I turned off someone else's censorship. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual, not because I couldn't sleep, but something inside my chest felt strange, quiet, as if the hum of constant suppression had vanished. I made coffee, opened my phone. Notifications, hundreds. I'm not kidding. The first was from a woman in Kentucky. Mrs. Myers, I don't know how you found the courage, but thank you. My daughter also asks me to not ruin the shots, and I've been paying for college and raising her alone. The second from New Jersey. You gave me a voice. I always thought it was just age. But no, it's erased motherhood. Tears welled up not from hurt, but from recognition. As if someone had pulled me from the back door and led me into the hall. A couple of hours later, I got a request from the podcast Mothers Unfiltered. The episode topic, Motherhood Off Camera and Its Cost. We recorded the episode on Zoom. The host Celine, a young journalist with a loud voice and sharp mind, started like this. Juliana, millions of women saw you. What did you feel when you pressed play on that video? I paused. Then I said, I didn't feel revenge. I felt coming back to myself. Loving your children doesn't mean erasing yourself. It means showing that love has a face too, mine included. She nodded and added, That was powerful, Mrs. Myers. Soon, quotes from the podcast started circulating on Instagram. Love doesn't mean erasing yourself. You can nurture others without forgetting who you are. Motherhood isn't always about sacrifice. Sometimes it's about voice. And for the first time in a long time, I felt I wasn't alone. That my voice was finally not background. It was the backbone. And it was being heard. After all that storm, I finally did what I had been meaning to do for a long time but was afraid if I said a firm no. No to sponsoring their honeymoon. No to living in that house that had become a symbol of disrespect and alienation. I put the house up for sale and flew to San Diego, a city where the air feels lighter and the sun warms differently. Here, I opened my gallery, Mothers in Shadow. It's not just walls with photographs. It's the story of millions of women whose faces and stories remain off camera, whose efforts no one sees, but without whom there would be neither success nor love. The opening was packed. Women of different ages, different stories, but one voice, a voice no longer hiding in the shadows. A young mother came up to me and said, "Thank you, Juliana. You made me realize that I matter, that I deserve respect too." In that moment, I understood I didn't raise a monster, as many tried to make me believe. I showed my son a boundary of respect and love. And now I'm building a new life. Not for others' expectations, but for my own truth. And that truth is a light that illuminates even the darkest corners of motherhood. A year passed. During that time, much has changed inside me and around me. One day, I get a message from Chris. "Can we talk?" I read those words and don't reply. Because right now, a different conversation matters more, the one with myself. With the women who supported me, with those who saw their story in mine. On Instagram, I post a new photo from my latest exhibition, Mothers in Shadow. The caption is simple but powerful. When they uninvite you from their story, write your own. I allowed him to smile one last time. Because now, my smile is mine. And I'm writing my life by my own rules,